We've looked at the body and the styling of the Mark X Jaguar. What's it like to drive? For a car that's 60 years old, it's quite surprising how well it gets along the road. Underneath the bonnet, we're presented with the Jaguar's XK designed 3.8 litre motor, the same engine that was in the E-Type Jag, cross-flow head, twin overhead cams and triple 2-inch SU carburetors. Powertrain is down through the original transmission, which was a DG box. On this car I changed the transmission out about 20 odd years ago and put in a Type 12 out of a later model Jaguar. A lot better, a lot smoother transmission and a lot more robust. The only other modification of the car was the air conditioning from the parcel shelf was taken out, unreliable and fairly inefficient for Australian conditions, and replaced it with a retro under-dash air conditioning system. Other than that, the car is fairly well standard. The engine delivers effortless smooth power, and for a car that's 60 years old, still gets through the hills and will do a flat out speed of still over 100 mile an hour. Cruising through the hills, it's a big car, and yes, it's got a bit of roll in the body, but it's a super smooth car. The suspension on the Mark X is achieved front and rear with coil-over wishbone configuration with hydraulic dampeners on the front. The rear end is part of Jaguar's legendary suspension and cradle system that can be found not only in the Mark X, but the E-Type Jag, the 420G, and pretty well right through to the last model of the Series 3 XJ. Mounted in the centre of the cradle is a heavy-duty differential. Inboard discs with drive shafts running out to independent hubs mounted in the cradle, and two coil-over spring hydraulic dampeners on each drive shaft arm. The configuration of the suspension system gives even a very large car like the Mark X exceptionally good handling capabilities, and even in the tightest of corners, allowing for a little bit of body roll, it's a magnificent system that just seems to work so well. It's heavy duty, and the maintenance required on this differential system is virtually zero. Other than oil change, a bearing seal replacement, the system has been faultless for 60 years in this particular car, and I dare say it'll go another 60 years without any trouble at all. The braking system on the Mark X works considerably well given the size of the car. It's a bellows style brake booster, disc brakes all the way around, and a complete Dunlop system front to rear. Maintenance is minimal on the car of this size, and they are all self-adjusting, including the inboard handbrake adjustment system in the rear cradle. It's fair to say that under normal driving conditions the braking system works exceptionally well. Heavy driving in the hills or at high speed, the brakes tend to fade out a little bit, and that can be expected for a car that weighs in at nearly 2 tonnes. The power steering system on the Mark X is driven by a hydraulic pump mounted on the rear of the generator, hydraulic fluid directly into the power steering box. Fairly unique to early model Jaguars, and was superseded in the 420G with a more conventional power steering system running off the belts. That being said, for a car of the Mark X size and weight, it does work exceptionally well. It tends to be fairly positive in most driving situations, with a very limited amount of movement at high speed on the open road, but in general an exceptionally good system for a car of this age. I've talked previously about the embedded DNA into each Jaguar model from the 1950s. A quick selection of pictures through here, ranging from the early model cars, the Mark X, 420G, going into 1969 into the XJ Series 1, 2 and 3. The hallmarks of Jaguar's DNA can be easily seen. If you've lined cars up or seen them at shows, you'll see all the traits of what Jaguar is all about. This Jaguar DNA and styling of the cars can be seen from 1969, the beginning of the XJ Series 1, the XJ Series 2, 3, right up through X300, right up to the last XJ model in 2008, the XJ358. Jaguar's concept and design teams have achieved a small miracle over the years. They've made a car that was already stylish, high performance and relevant to today's motoring. They've kept the DNA of Jaguar's history from the 1940s right through to the middle of the 2000s. As time catches up with these gorgeous, beautiful motor vehicles, it's time that we look at some of the most important things as owners and drivers of these wonderful cars: the restoration, presentation and continued appreciation of some of these fabulous cars. As a member of my local Jaguar Drivers Club, I've seen over the years so many wonderful restorations of some of these beautiful cars. It's the only way moving forward that we can keep these vehicles on the road so that future generations can appreciate the styling and design of cars like Jaguar. Over the years, many of the cars go into storage. We see them in barn finds and in sheds. We see them in wrecking yards, unfortunately. To avoid a lot of this happening to some of these fabulous cars, club membership is a very important part. Obviously, there's a great social aspect to joining various motoring clubs, but one of the most important things is the preservation of the knowledge for the restoration of these vehicles. The knowledge that slowly over the years, like the vehicles themselves, gets lost in time. Club membership gives the ability for older members that have restored cars before to pass on that knowledge, to be able to help and advise people that are considering the restoration of their particular model car to end up with a vehicle that not only looks good but makes the driver happy, and a car, as I said, will continue to represent Jaguar's history in the automotive world. This is just a small selection of photographs taken of restoration of my own Mark 10 some 20 odd years ago. Another one here is a club member for 420G. This car was from Broken Hill and had been parked up behind a shed for many years before being brought to Adelaide and rescued. The dedication and hard work by so many Jaguar drivers will give the future generations the opportunity to look back and marvel at some of the most beautiful motor vehicles produced in the mid to late 20th century. The preservation of these cars, not just Jaguars, but of all makes and models around the world. The preservation of these vehicles will also highlight the great advances we've made in automotive history in the last 100 years, from steam-driven vehicles right through to electric vehicles. The changes in technology and all the things that make the motoring world the great thing that we love. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to perhaps seeing you on the road somewhere in the near future in your Jaguar. Cheerio.